Okay, so ready to dive into the world of import-export management. We're focusing on landing that dream job in the dairy and edible oils sector.
And we've got some awesome resources from RoleCatcher. It uses AI to give you a real advantage in your crop search.
Right, it's like having a secret weapon. So think of this as your pre-interview boot camp.
Exactly. We're not just going over those common questions.
We're going to be showing you how RoleCatcher can help you tailor your responses for each specific role you're going for. Because, let's be honest, a generic answer is just not going to cut it these days.
No, it won't.
Okay, let's jump right into a question that RoleCatcher flags as, absolutely crucial. And the question is, what inspired you to pursue this career, specifically in dairy and edible oils?
This is where you really want to showcase your genuine passion.
Yeah.
It's not just about, liking challenges or wanting a good salary. It goes deeper than that.
Right.
So instead of giving a vague answer, share an experience that really sparked your import-export journey. Maybe you were just captivated by the complexity of global supply chains, or maybe you had a personal connection to the dairy or edible oils industry.
That's about telling your story, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so we told our story. What if they dig a little deeper and they say something like, can you give a specific experience that solidified your interest?
Well, now they want to see if you've really thought this through.
Yeah.
So talk about a project, maybe an internship you had, or even just a conversation that solidified your passion for this field. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you pick the most relevant experiences to highlight from your past.
It's like having an AI co-pilot. It's suggesting the best route for your interview.
I love that analogy.
Okay. Let's move on to the nitty-gritty. What key challenges do you anticipate in managing the import-export of dairy and edible oils?
Okay. Here's where you demonstrate that you really understand the complexities of this industry. So think beyond the obvious. For example, dairy products are highly perishable.
Oh, yeah.
Temperature-controlled shipping and strict adherence to sanitary regulations are absolutely paramount.
Right.
Edible oils, on the other hand, they face incredible volatility in raw material prices and global supply shifts. You've got to think about things like weather patterns and political instability all over the world.
So how would you, as the interviewee, navigate these challenges? This is where you really get to bring in your problem-solving skills.
Yeah, absolutely. You could mention staying informed about regulatory changes by using industry publications, like the International Dairy Foods Association's Dairy Reporter, or maybe the American Oil Chemists Society Journal.
Keep yourself in the loop.
Yes, exactly. You could also talk about the importance of building strong relationships with suppliers and customers worldwide, diversifying your sourcing options,
Right.
and of course having contingency plans in place, because things, let's be real, they will inevitably go wrong at some point.
They do. Speaking of regulations, that brings us to compliance. How do you ensure compliance with all the import-export regulations and customs requirements?
Oh, boy. This is a big one.
Yeah.
You really have to showcase your meticulous approach here.
Yeah.
Because customs regulations are the gatekeepers of international trade. And any misstep can lead to costly delays, penalties, or even legal issues.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you, as the interviewee, should highlight when answering this question?
You should definitely demonstrate a strong understanding of input terms. Those define the responsibilities in international transactions. You also need to know about certificates of origin, which prove the origin of goods, and they're often required for preferential trade agreements. And don't forget about those sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which are absolutely crucial for food safety and preventing the spread of diseases. These regulations, they can be complex.
Yeah, they are.
But RoleCatcher's AI, it can help you structure your answers, and it can even help ensure that you hit all the key points.
It's like having a virtual compliance officer right in your pocket.
That's a good way to put it.
So international business is all about relationships. And RoleCatcher highlights this question. How do you manage relationships with international suppliers and customers?
Well, building trust across continents, that is key.
Yeah.
It's about understanding those cultural nuances, having clear communication, and respecting different business practices.
What if they follow up with, can you share an example of overcoming a cultural barrier in a business negotiation?
Oh, this is your chance to showcase your cultural sensitivity.
Right.
So maybe you had to adjust your communication style to be more direct or maybe more indirect. Or perhaps you had to navigate different approaches to decision-making and time management.
Yeah, totally.
Be specific and show how you built a bridge despite those differences.
That's a great example.
Okay.
Next up, how do you stay updated on industry trends and market conditions in such a dynamic field? Because things change constantly.
Staying ahead of the curve is absolutely crucial in this business. Yeah.
You could mention subscribing to industry newsletters, like we mentioned the Dairy Reporter earlier, or attending trade shows like the World Dairy Expo, or even participating in webinars that are hosted by organizations like the U.S. Soybean Export Council.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
And don't forget, you can actually add these sources to your RoleCatcher profile.
That's smart.
Really demonstrates your commitment to continuous learning.
I like that. RoleCatcher suggests a potential follow-up question, and it is, what are some reputable sources of information that you rely on for the dairy and edible oils market?
Okay, this is where you can really name drop specific publications, websites, and even thought leaders that you follow.
Yeah.
For example, you could mention the FAO's Food Outlook Report, which provides global market analysis for agricultural commodities, or the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service Reports, which offer in-depth insights into specific markets and trade policies.
Right, show that you really know your stuff.
Yeah. Okay, it's not just about saying you stay informed. It's about showing exactly how you do it.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the strategic aspect of this role. How do you develop and implement import-export strategies that align with the company's business goals?
Okay. This is where you get to showcase your strategic thinking.
Yeah.
You really need to understand the company's overall objectives and then explain how your import-export activities are going to contribute to achieving them.
So what if they say, give an example of adapting your import-export strategy to a sudden change in market demand? Because things happen.
Oh, that's a good one. This is testing your adaptability and your ability to think on your feet.
Yeah.
You could talk about a situation where there was a sudden surge in demand for a particular edible oil, and you had to quickly identify new suppliers, negotiate favorable contracts, and adjust your logistics plan to ensure timely delivery. Or maybe you had to pivot your sourcing strategy when a major dairy-producing region was hit by an unexpected drought. Things happen.
So be prepared to walk them through a specific scenario.
Yeah.
And explain your decision-making process.
Exactly. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can help you rehearse your answers and get feedback on your delivery.
Right.
You can even record yourself answering these questions and see how you come across. It's like having a virtual interview coach to help you refine your presentation style.
That's a pretty incredible tool. All right, last question from this set. How do you manage risk in import-export operations? Because every shipment, it has its risks.
Especially with perishable goods like dairy products, every shipment is a potential tightrope walk.
Yeah.
You really need to demonstrate your ability to identify potential risks, assess their impact, and implement those mitigation strategies.
What kind of risks should we, as the interviewee, be thinking about?
Well, for dairy, you have to think about those temperature fluctuations during transit, spoilage due to delays, or even contamination issues. For edible oils, you've got price volatility, supply chain disruptions because of political instability in producing regions, and even the risk of adulteration or fraud.
There's a lot to juggle. I bet you have some stories about compliance nightmares or just unexpected disruptions that really tested your risk management skills.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But those experiences, they teach you to be proactive and to think several steps ahead. Just like a chess grandmaster planning their moves.
Right.
You need to consider things like political instability in sourcing regions, weather events that can disrupt harvests, or even currency fluctuations that impact your costs.
It's not just about reacting to problems, it's about anticipating them before they even happen.
Exactly. And having those backup plans ready to go, that's what gives you the confidence to navigate those choppy waters.
This has been incredibly insightful so far. We've covered a lot of ground. We're just getting started.
So now that we've kind of tackled those tough interview questions,
Yeah.
let's shift gears a little bit and explore the actual career path itself. RoleCatcher's Career Guide provides a fascinating roadmap, kind of showing where this role could actually take you.
I'm always curious about those early days. Like, what does a typical day even look like for a junior import-export coordinator?
Well, according to RoleCatcher,
Yeah.
as a junior coordinator, you'd be immersed in the day-to-day operations,
Okay.
assisting those senior team members with coordinating those cross-border transactions.
So lots of hands-on experience.
Very hands-on. Think preparing and processing import and export documents, tracking shipments, coordinate them with suppliers, logistics partners, even customs brokers.
Wow.
You're really the engine room of the operation,
Yeah.
making sure everything runs smoothly.
And speaking of nuts and bolts, RoleCatcher mentions specific documents.
Yes.
Like bills of lading, commercial invoices, and certificates of origin. Could you maybe just explain those briefly
Sure.
for those who might be new to this world?
Of course. A bill of lading is essentially the shipment's passport. It's a legal document. It's issued by the carrier, acknowledging receipt of the goods. And it outlines the terms of transport.
Okay.
A commercial invoice, that's like the shipment's itemized receipt,
Okay.
detailing the goods being shipped, their value, and the terms of sale.
Makes sense.
And a certificate of origin that verifies where the goods were produced,
Right.
which is often required for preferential trade agreements or to comply with specific import regulations.
I can see how mastering those documents is so crucial in those early stages.
Yes, absolutely.
So how does that junior coordinator role then evolve?
Well, as you gain more experience,
Yeah.
the next step up is often an import-export specialist.
Okay.
At this stage, you're managing those end-to-end import and export processes with more autonomy.
So more responsibility.
More responsibility, yeah.
Yeah.
You might be developing strategies for specific markets, negotiating contracts with suppliers and customers, conducting risk assessments for shipments, and even resolving any compliance issues that arise.
So you're becoming a problem solver.
Yes. And a strategic thinker.
Okay. What about the next rung on the ladder?
Well, as you continue to gain expertise and demonstrate that leadership potential,
Yeah.
you could move into a senior import-export manager role.
Okay.
Here, you're not just managing processes, you're actually shaping them.
Wow.
You're developing and implementing import and export strategies that align with the organization's overall goals, managing a team of specialists, building relationships with those key international stakeholders, conducting financial analysis to optimize profitability, and of course, ensuring compliance with all those ever-changing international trade regulations.
Sounds like a challenging but rewarding role.
Oh, absolutely.
You're like the conductor of the import-export orchestra,
That's a great way to put it.
making sure everything is in sync.
If-
And finally, at the top of the pyramid, we have the director of global trade operations.
That's right.
This is the big leagues.
It is.
What does that entail?
At this level, you're setting the strategic direction for the entire global trade operation. You're leading and managing a team of managers and specialists, fostering relationships with those key stakeholders, even government authorities, conducting in-depth market analysis to identify new opportunities,
Wow.
developing and implementing compliance programs to mitigate risk, and overseeing the financial performance of those global trade operations.
Okay, so you're not just influencing the company's bottom line.
Right. You're shaping its global footprint.
That sounds like it requires not just technical expertise, but strong leadership skills, strategic vision,
Absolutely.
and a deep understanding of the global economic landscape.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And RoleCatcher's Career Guide emphasizes that each stage of this career path requires a different set of skills and knowledge.
So it's not just about climbing the ladder, it's about evolving your skills and knowledge along the way.
Exactly.
And speaking of knowledge, RoleCatcher highlights specific certifications
yes,
that can boost your credibility and open doors to those really exciting opportunities.
they do. They specifically mention the Certified International Trade Professional,
Okay.
or CITP,
CITP, got it.
the Certified Global Business Professional, CGBP,
CGB,
and the Certified Supply Chain Professional, or CSCP.
CSCP.
These certifications demonstrate your commitment to professional development and provide a really deep dive into specific areas of expertise.
Okay, let's break those down.
Okay.
Why are those certifications so valuable at different career stages or for specific industry niches?
Well, the CITP, it's offered by the Forum for International Trade Training. It's a globally recognized designation that covers a broad range of international trade topics.
Okay.
So it's valuable for professionals at all levels. The CGBP, that's offered by NASBITE International. It focuses on global business practices.
Okay.
And it's particularly relevant for those involved in international sales, marketing, and strategy.
So more the business side.
Yes. And then the CSCP, it's offered by APCS. It dives deep into supply chain management.
Okay.
So that's ideal for those focused on logistics, procurement, and operations.
So those certifications are like badges of honor
I like that.
that signal your expertise to potential employers.
Exactly. And they can give you a real edge in this competitive field.
Yeah. They show that you're not just familiar with the basics,
Right.
but that you've invested the time and effort to deepen your knowledge and skills.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's dive back into those interview questions.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
but there are always more questions that you could potentially be asked.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Each interview is unique,
Yeah.
and the interviewer might throw in some curveballs.
Okay. To assess your knowledge, your problem-solving skills, or even just your personality.
Exactly.
So what are some additional questions that you might encounter during an import-export manager interview?
One common question is, can you describe your experience with specific import-export documentation, such as bills of lading, commercial invoices, or certificates of origin?
Right, those are the building blocks.
They are. And this is where you showcase your hands-on experience with those crucial documents we talked about earlier.
So how should you approach this question?
Well, be prepared to walk the interviewer through the process. Explain the purpose of each document,
Right.
and how you've used them in your previous roles. You could even mention any software or systems that you've used to manage and track these documents to demonstrate your tech savviness.
So it's about showcasing both your knowledge and your practical experience.
Yes, exactly.
What other tricky questions might come up?
Another one is, how do you handle discrepancies or errors in import-export documentation?
Oh, mistakes happen.
They do. And this is where you demonstrate your attention to detail,
Yeah.
your problem-solving skills, and your commitment to compliance.
It's important to show that you can handle those situations effectively.
Absolutely. You could talk about the steps you take to identify and rectify errors, emphasizing your meticulous approach and your ability to communicate effectively with all parties involved. Maybe you noticed a discrepancy in the declared value of goods on a commercial invoice. Or perhaps there was a missing certificate of origin that needed to be obtained. Be specific about how you resolve those issues, showcasing your resourcefulness and your commitment to accuracy.
It's not just about catching the error, it's about taking ownership and actually fixing it.
Right.
What else? What else should we be prepared for?
You might also get asked about the impact of technology on the import-export industry.
Oh yeah, technology is changing everything.
It is, especially with advancements in areas like blockchain, AI, and e-commerce.
So it's not just about knowing the traditional ways of doing things.
No, you have to embrace innovation. Show that you're ready for the future of import-export. So talk about the specific technologies, like blockchain being used to track shipments and ensure transparency in the supply chain, or AI being used to optimize logistics and predict those demand fluctuations.
And even things like e-commerce platforms that connect buyers and sellers from around the world.
Yes, making it easier to conduct international business.
So be prepared to think big picture.
Yeah, and show that you're not just stuck in the past.
Okay. What about those behavioral questions that interviewers love to throw in?
I know exactly what you mean.
The ones that are designed to assess your soft skills
Yes.
and how you handle those challenging situations.
Right. One classic example is, can you tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult customer or supplier in an international transaction?
Ooh, I bet you have some stories.
Oh, plenty. And this is where you showcase your diplomacy,
Okay.
your patience, and your ability to find those mutually agreeable solutions.
Despite those cultural differences or language barriers.
I know.
Okay, so how should we approach this question?
Choose an anecdote that highlights your ability to navigate those tricky cross-cultural interactions. Maybe you had to deal with a supplier who was consistently delivering goods late.
Yeah.
Or perhaps you had a customer who was unhappy with the quality of the products they received.
Happens all the time.
It does. Be specific about the steps you took to resolve the situation, emphasizing your communication skills, your cultural sensitivity, and your commitment to finding a win-win outcome.
Those real-world examples are always so much more compelling
Oh, absolutely.
than just saying, I'm a good communicator.
Okay, what about the dreaded salary question?
Oh, yes.
Everyone gets nervous about that one. What are your salary expectations?
It can be tricky. You don't want to undersell yourself, but you also don't want to price yourself out of the running.
So how do you strike that balance?
First, do your research. Websites like Glassdoor or Salary.com, they can give you a good idea of average salaries for import-export managers in your location and with your level of experience.
Okay. And of course, RoleCatcher's AI can analyze job descriptions and provide salary benchmarks for specific roles, giving you a realistic target range.
So helpful.
Yeah.
So armed with that information, how do you actually answer the question?
Be prepared to justify your salary expectations based on your experience, your skills, and the value that you bring to the table. You could say something like, Based on my experience in managing international shipments of dairy and edible oils, my strong track record of negotiating favorable contracts, and my expertise in navigating those complex customs regulations, I'm seeking a salary in the range of X to Y.
Okay, so it's about showcasing your value and being confident in your worth.
Yes.
And finally, we can't forget about the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the interview.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you have any questions for me? It's your chance to show your genuine interest in the role and in the company.
It is.
So what kind of questions should you ask?
Avoid questions that could be easily answered with a quick Google search. Instead, ask thoughtful questions about the company's culture, their growth plans, or the specific challenges of the role.
Give me an example.
Sure. You could ask about the company's commitment to sustainability in their supply chain, their approach to managing risk in those volatile markets, or their plans for expanding into new international markets.
It's about showing that you've done your homework
Yes.
and that you're genuinely engaged.
Right. And remember, asking insightful questions, it can leave a lasting impression and demonstrate your enthusiasm for the opportunity.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of import-export management.
It has.
We've explored those key challenges, the essential skills, the potential career path, all through the lens of RoleCatcher's insightful resources.
We've also seen how RoleCatcher's AI can be an invaluable tool throughout that whole interview process, helping you tailor your answers, refine your delivery, and even research those salary benchmarks.
But before we move on to the final part of this episode, where we'll kind of explore the bigger picture of the dairy and edible oils import-export landscape, let's take a moment to just reflect
Okay.
on what we've learned so far.
What stands out to you as like the most important takeaway?
For me, it's the emphasis on continuous learning and adaptation in this ever-evolving field.
Right.
You can never rest on your laurels.
No.
You need to constantly stay informed about those changing regulations, those emerging technologies, and those shifting market dynamics.
I completely agree. And I think that's a valuable lesson for anyone, regardless of their field. The world is changing at an unprecedented pace. And the ability to adapt, it's becoming more important than ever.
So as we move into the final part of this episode, let's keep that in mind. The importance of embracing change, cultivating a mindset of curiosity, and never stopping learning. Okay, so we've prepped for those interview questions, explored the career path, but now I kind of want to zoom out. Look at the bigger picture. RoleCatcher mentions that there are some massive forces at play in this dairy and edible oils trade. Like, it's bigger than just one company or one job.
Oh, it absolutely is. Remember those challenges we discussed earlier? Regulations, supply chains, volatile markets. Those are just symptoms of a much larger global system, one that's influenced by, well, geopolitics, climate change, consumer trends, even technology is constantly disrupting things.
So it's like you need to understand the weather patterns before you set sail, right?
Exactly.
What's the forecast for dairy and edible oils globally? What can we expect?
Well, geopolitics is a huge factor. You've got things like trade wars, sanctions, political instability. Those disrupt supply chains. And they just create so much uncertainty. We're seeing that right now with the disruptions in sunflower oil from the Black Sea region, which is impacting global edible oil prices.
So it's like this ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
One event in one corner of the world can impact everyone. What about climate change? That seems like a long-term threat to agriculture in general.
It is a long-term threat. Droughts in major dairy-producing regions like New Zealand or floods impacting palm oil harvests in Southeast Asia, those can send shockwaves through the entire market. And we're seeing increased volatility in prices and in sourcing patterns as a result.
So as an import-export manager, you can't just focus on spreadsheets.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of these global events. What about consumer trends? Are those changing the game too?
Definitely. The demand for things like organic dairy, plant-based alternatives to both dairy and traditional oils, sustainably sourced ingredients. Those are shifting what's traded globally. An import-export manager needs to be ahead of the curve on these trends to really capitalize on those opportunities and avoid being left with outdated stock.
It's like fashion, but for food.
I like that.
What about technology? We touched on this a little bit earlier, but how is it really reshaping this import-export world, specifically for dairy and edible oils?
It's revolutionizing everything. Blockchain is being used to track dairy products, like literally from farm to table, ensuring that food safety and that transparency. AI is optimizing shipping routes and predicting demand fluctuations for edible oils, minimizing waste and maximizing those profits. And then you have e-commerce platforms, which are connecting smaller producers with international buyers, just creating these whole new market opportunities.
So it's not just about the physical goods moving around.
Yeah.
It's about the information flow and those digital tools that are transforming this entire industry.
Exactly. And as these technologies evolve, an import-export manager needs to adapt, learn those new systems, and really see how to leverage them for a competitive advantage.
This has been eye-opening, to say the least. It's clear that succeeding in this role isn't just about knowing import-export procedures. It's about understanding this incredibly complex global system that's in constant flux. So for those listening, prepping for that interview, what's the one key takeaway?
I would say go beyond just those technical skills. Demonstrate an awareness of these larger forces: geopolitics, climate, consumer trends, technology, and show how you think critically about their impact on the dairy and edible oils trade. That's what sets you apart as a strategic thinker, not just a task doer.
It's all about thinking big picture.
Exactly.
And remember, RoleCatcher's resources and those AI tools, they can really help you along the way.
Absolutely.
From tailoring your answers to understanding those career paths, this has been a deep dive into the world of dairy and edible oils, import-export management. We hope this has been valuable as you embark on this very exciting career journey. Good luck, everyone.